Good morning, everybody. I'm Muriel Bowser, and I'm joined today by members of my transportation and infrastructure team. Lucinda Babers, who is the Deputy Mayor for Operations and Infrastructure, Everett Lott, the Director of DDOT, and also Commander Robinson. I want to acknowledge the presence of ANC commissioners as well. Today we're at 48th Street, Minnesota Avenue to talk about traffic safety and immediate steps we're taking to improve the safety of our roadways in Washington, D.C. I acknowledge, like many of you, the frustration and anger that is boiling over in our communities because of traffic violence. We have worked hard to get our city back open, to get our children back in school. And just this past month, 4 children have been struck by drivers. And tragically, we lost one of those children. And there have been significant injuries. Just last week, 2 little girls and their father were struck while crossing a street on National Walk to School Day. It's heartbreaking and unacceptable. All of us want our children to be able to walk to school or walk to the bus or have fun outside on the sidewalks in front of their homes. We want our children to be able to ride their bikes, of course, and play outside without fear that someone will be speeding through their neighborhood without regard for their safety or anyone's safety. We need all drivers, of course, to understand their responsibility. And anytime you drive 25 miles over the speed limit, you drive over 25 miles per hour, you take a serious risk that someone could die if there is a collision. And we all see it. We all see people racing through our streets, side streets, main roads. We see cars going around stopped cars so that they can run a red light. And sometimes it's not the speed, it's distraction. We have all seen that as well. We've seen frustration and the refusal to share the road. So we know that as drivers, we can all do better. And if the threat of killing someone is not enough for people to slow down, we are all working to make sure we can hold drivers who disregard road safety and their responsibility that goes with the privilege of driving to hold them accountable. But the other part of this conversation is how we change our infrastructure to make roads safer. Just this past May, many of us were together to kick off a summer safety project to accelerate 109 projects all across the district and all 8 wards, including 25 projects along the highest injury corridors. Currently, 67 of these projects are complete and 67 are complete and 32 are under construction or in the final stages of completion. That's 10 of them. We know that residents are also have expressed a lot of frustration around studies, requests that go into DDOT, and seem like they're taking a long time to complete. So when you experience dangerous conditions and your neighbors experience dangerous conditions and you report it, people expect an immediate action from the government. So I've asked DDOT to streamline our internal process so safety projects can get from start to finish more quickly. People shouldn't be waiting weeks or months to have a sign replaced, for example, and proving that drivers continuously run stop signs when people see it happening with their own eyes day after day. So we don't think that should be a months-long bureaucratic nightmare, and we're going to work very hard to streamline those processes. We're here at this intersection because it is an example of how quickly work can get done. In this case, and the director will say more about this, the addition of a curb extension and median islands, the installation of new high visibility crosswalks, as well as ADA upgrades, all designed and constructed in one season. So based on experiences like this one, I've asked DDOT to move forward with a campaign to accelerate these projects that will make our roads safer. This will include the installation of speed humps, stop signs, right turn hardening measures as well. The goal will be to complete at least 50 of these projects in the next 6 weeks, and residents will be able to track our progress on the DDOT website. Of course, this is initial blitz of activity that is part of ongoing and well-funded work. So I'm asking residents to keep working with us, keep submitting 311 requests. When you see a damaged stop sign or broken flexi post, keep reporting those safety issues to us and keep working with your neighbors to advocate for safer communities. As I said, this is part of a series of well-funded and thoughtful projects across all 8 wards of the city that is aimed to make our streets safer. So with that, I want to introduce Director Lott for some comments, and then we'll take some questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. My name is Everett Lott. I'm the Acting Director with the District's Department of Transportation, and I am grateful to be here today to restate and reiterate your sentiments and relay how roadway safety remains paramount for me and my entire team at DDOT. And before I get into this, let me just say I'm equally as frustrated, equally as angry. I'm a parent. I'm a father. I have a son who's on these roads. I'm on these roads every day, and so every time that I see a distracted driver, every time I see someone speeding down the roadway, it hurts me. I met that family. I met the family at Allison Hart. I met many other families, and it hurts me every day. And so we at DDOT are going to do everything that we can to engineer these roads to make sure they are safer, to engineer these roads to make sure they slow down cars, but we also have to make sure that people have personal responsibility. Distracted driving, speeding is unacceptable, and we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that we can stop that. As you mentioned, we're going to accelerate our roadway and our intersection improvements to include construction of speed humps, stop sign installations, and right turn hardening measures. This is to help protect our most vulnerable roadway users, pedestrians, bicyclists, children. In addition to taking on additional safety workloads, we also know that we must shorten the amount of time it takes to implement these safety improvements. In order to do this, we will be making changes to our public engagement process so that we can deliver safety improvements quicker. Examples of that include reducing the public comment period for safety-related improvements and limiting project notices of intent to only those required by district law. Another immediate change we're implementing includes DDOT's move over the summer to realign the Vision Zero division into our project delivery administration to consolidate all of our safety agency, our safety programs into one place. This will increase and has increased the rate of speed of our critical safety projects that we're delivering as we go forward. And because we need action across the district and we need it right now, I'm announcing that we are expanding beyond our 2021 summer safety campaign that Mayor Bowser introduced earlier this year. With Mayor Bowser's support, going forward every year, DDOT will target 100 intersections in the city that includes Vision Zero high crash corridors. Just as we did in the 2021 campaign, we will publish a dashboard on our website where the public can follow and access in order to track the progress of the work that we're doing throughout the year. We share the concern, we share the frustration that the members of this community have expressed about safety on our roadways. That same passion is what keeps us at DDOT, the staff, committed to doing what is needed to make our streets safe. So I want to be clear that when we talk about safety, we mean safety on our roadways. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, we can take some questions. Any questions, press first and community?
How much of a challenge is it when you're working in the city where the streets are narrower, built in a different era? Out here, they're a little bit wider. Are you going to be able to meet that challenge and preserve parking, which is also a big issue for a lot of folks in town?
Okay, so your first question is, how do we work on wider streets?
The older streets. Is it harder to do this in the older parts of town where the infrastructure is older, narrower, smaller, as opposed to maybe out here where it's a little wider?
Well, you'll hear from our engineers that they like narrower. Because narrower streets tend to support slower speeds. So you've actually put your finger on an issue that's important when we have more spread out, wide open spaces, and we have a lot of commuter traffic. That's a combination for high speeds, more collisions, and more, and can be to lead to more injury and sometimes death. So when we think about some of the things that the director has already mentioned in terms of going out and identifying high crash intersections, typically they will look at ways to actually narrow the street or visually narrow the street to help support slower speeds.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering what you might say to advocates for safety, for street safety, who have become, as you've acknowledged, both of you openly acknowledged their frustration that, since 2015, Vision Zero has been moving forward. There have been a lot of these. We've been to a lot of these press conferences where you've done these improvements, and yet we see pedestrian fatalities continue to go up. And so what do you say? Why do you think that just expediting these projects is going to make a difference? And what do you say to these people, other than you share their frustration, how you'll correct?
Well, Mark, you notice what we didn't say was that only expediting these projects is what's needed. Anytime that we talk about traffic safety, we're going to talk about everything that we can do as a government to make the infrastructure better. But we know we have a lot of roadway users out there as well that need to change their behavior to make the roadway safer. People need to slow down. They need to stop using their cell phones and other things that distract them while driving. They need to make complete stops. They need to stop violating the no turn on red signs. All of these things together, we know, can make our streets safer. What we've also heard from the public is they want to know what's happening to a request, and they want to know how we are tracking with all of the things that we've promised on our roadways. And so we are going to make every effort to make those efforts more transparent as well.
So can I follow up on
Sure.
the enforcement that you've talked about a couple of times now, as far as speed and distracted driving? I see we have MPD here. Mm-hmm. Is there a plan to ramp up enforcement beyond photo enforcement for those offenses, for people speeding through neighborhoods, people who are doing distracted driving? You've mentioned it twice now, and I'm just wondering if you'll change enforcement.
As you know, we are heavily invested to cameras as a way to enforce traffic safety laws in the district. What I've asked DDOT and our procurement team to investigate is how we speed up our 22 investment in cameras, and I think that we'll be able to do that, not only to speed it up but to make it bigger. So we are very focused on that. We've had very good history in this city with red light camera enforcement, and we've actually seen the number of collisions related to red light running going down. Someone will remind me how long we've been doing this, probably 15 years or more. With red light running. And so we have a few examples of stop sign cameras as well, and that we will be looking more to see if that is going to be helpful to us in reducing collisions. When it comes to MPD, of course, they have jurisdiction for traffic safety. I don't have to remind you, we've been in a year-long debate on MPD's role in making traffic stops, which complicates that issue a little bit. So we think cameras is our best way to get all across the city at the high crash intersections. Yes, Sam.
So, Mayor, I've heard from people from Alabama Avenue to Glover Park complaining about these changes taking away parking. I mean, is that a consideration as you're making these changes? Because they talk about elderly people who, this is very inconvenient for them in many cases.
Okay, so you have put your finger on a big issue that does impact the speed at which traffic improvements can be made, traffic safety improvements can be made. In the announcement that we're making today about streamlining the process also impacts the amount of time, or it may impact community engagement at all on some of these projects. So that is something for ANC commissioners, community groups, and neighbors to recognize, that in order to expedite some of these processes, the community engagement process will be truncated. And I don't do that lightly. DDOT doesn't approach that lightly either. But we have professional traffic engineers who we rely on to make recommendations and take implementation steps that will make our community safer. It is also true that a lot of the bike and pedestrian processes that we have undergone over the last 15-year period, they've kind of gone in phases. And I would dare say, and I'll ask the director to jump in, a lot of the easy ones have been done. The ones that don't represent any conflict between parking and a bike lane, or any conflict between making a right turn easier, or a bike lane, or a pedestrian crossing, or a bus stop. A lot of the easy ones that represent no conflict at all. And when I say conflict, what I mean is when I put in this intervention, it doesn't affect your ability to park or drive. Those have been done. The ones that we are really focused on do represent some trade-off, some conflict. But at the end of the day, I want everybody to recognize that we want to understand how important it is for people to have access to their businesses, their homes, to park, to drive, to walk, to use the bus stop, to get kids to school. But we have the, I believe, very good vantage point to be able to make proposals that recognizes all of those trade-offs, but at the end of the day, makes the road safer for everyone. So that's what our difficult and important job is.
I look at this. Okay.
Go ahead.
Anyway, I look at this this barrier here in the middle of Minnesota Avenue. Now, I did a piece a couple of weeks ago on Good Hope Road, and DDOT put this barrier in, and it caused people to crash into the neighboring buildings because they didn't do as good a job as they seem to have done with these markers and things here. But the line just ended at the barrier, and I don't know if you, Mr. Director, if you're aware of this. The line just ended at the barrier, and as a result, one of the neighbors said they had 15 crashes there in about a month's time.
So let's, I'm going to ask the director to address how the agency approaches your first question, the trade-offs between making the road safer, that may impact travel lanes and parking lanes.
Yeah, my response to that would be that safety does not always equate to convenience, and convenience does not always equate to safety. And so as we're looking at making these improvements and these investments, we are very aware of the concerns that residents talk about in terms of the loss of parking. And so we're going to do that in a meaningful and respectful way as we're engaging and having those conversations. But at the end of the day, we're going to do what's right and what's going to be the most safest intervention that we can put in to make sure that we're keeping these roadways safe, and also to to eliminate the amount of speeding that's happening on our roadways.
Does that mean that bike lanes take precedence over parking in every instance?
It doesn't necessarily mean that. No, we're going to look at different types of interventions. Again, the main purpose and the main focus is safety. So it may be a bike lane in some instance. It may be a refuge island like you're referencing behind me in other instances. But we're going to look at all the different interventions, but safety is going to be the number one factor that drives us to make the decision that we ultimately implement.
Okay, and the bike, I'm just curious about the Good Hope Road thing. What's your explanation for that?
That was an active project that had not been completed yet. And so what you're seeing behind us is a project that has been completed and was part of the streamlined process that we're talking about now. But that Good Hope Road was a project that was active and had not been completed. But one of the things I can also say about Good Hope Road is that we've had reported history of speeding along Good Hope Road. And part of putting in the one of the reasons for putting in the refuge island is to slow down cars. It narrows the roadway, which is what we just talked about a little bit earlier. That's what we've done. I believe that project now is completely finished, so we do have the markings, we do have the barriers in place, but it was really to slow down cars because cars were speeding incessantly down that roadway.
Okay, and so the mayor talked about a lot more of these taking place. So will that be taken into consideration? Because obviously, if it wasn't finished, why wasn't it done like that? And the day that I did the story, after which the council member complained, they did that. But before that, it was just there for, they said, a month. So if you're going to be doing these others, is that going to be a consideration?
No, again, that was an active project that we were working on. We did have barriers in place and high visibility markings or barriers for people to be aware of. Not the markings, but the barriers. And so, again, as we're going through and putting in refuge islands and things like that, we'll make sure that, again, is completely marked off so that people are aware. We also have the proper signage that will indicate that there has been a change in the traffic pattern.
Two quick questions. One on this. I talked to some ANC commissioners that are frustrated by the traffic safety assessment process, that, DDOT will come back and say, not respond properly to what they say is a really popular neighborhood request, maybe not putting up a stop sign or saying it's more of an enforcement issue or something like that. They're excited to hear that things will move faster, but their main question is, will these safety things that they're asking for actually get done?
The short answer to that question is yes, they will get done. Several things that were being required in the past to go through a traffic safety investigation, we're not going to require that, and we stopped requiring that over the past several months, which is why we've been able to get a lot of these things implemented over the summer. Speed humps, getting a knockdown sign, installing a sign, those do not require, should not have required a traffic safety assessment. A lot of the requests that we receive are for speed humps because they want speed control mechanisms implemented into their neighborhoods. And again, we'll go out, we'll have our internal staff, our engineers, do the assessment themselves, and then we'll go around and make the turnaround and go ahead and do the implementation of the actual intervention.
I think they were maybe talking about like four-way stops and that sort of thing. But and then my other question is on the enforcement side of Vision Zero. Is the council passed the omnibus bill last year. One of the things they really wanted to see was ticket reciprocity with Virginia and Maryland to make sure that people who get those photo tickets actually are responsible for paying them. Mayor Bowser was supposed to negotiate with the governors of Virginia and Maryland for that, and filed a report saying that they reached out to the governors and they said no. I asked Governors Northam's and Hogan's spokesperson about that. They said they hadn't heard anything. So what happened? Were those negotiations? Did they take place? Where are we? Why was it said that they talked to Hogan and Northam when they aren't familiar with that?
So I understand that the DDOT team, whatever report you are referring to, they will update it and correct it. And it's my understanding that staff level conversations have occurred. I haven't personally had that conversation with the governor, so we'll correct that information.
And is that something that you still think is really important to achieve?
We think it's important that people pay their tickets. And we have seen over the course of the last several months that people have paid from those states and other states as part of our amnesty program. And so we think that that is important. We think that reciprocity, including our drivers paying their tickets in Maryland and Virginia, so there is the other side to that conversation as well, is also important. I think that steady and quick enforcement helps in the compliance with all of our laws, including traffic safety.
So can I just follow up? So
Sure.
Does D.C. offer reciprocity to Maryland and Virginia currently, or are we all in the same?
We're all in the same boat.
Okay. And I know in the past you've had some data related to the amnesty program about the offenders from different states, but I think we're all in the press still waiting for that data that we were promised at that press conference.
Okay.
That
Deputy Mayor?
I'm sure that we'll be getting soon, I hope.
Okay,
on that.
I will ask Deputy Mayor Babers
I
to
appreciate
follow
that.
up with
and then
you.
if I could ask a somewhat related question, more hyper-specific to neighborhoods. In Glover Park, the bike lanes that have been proposed there at, I think it's Tunlaw and 37th are the two streets there that are getting the bike lanes. Two proposals that DDOT has put forward had pretty much been rejected by the Citizens Association and the ANCs there. DDOT is scheduled to come back this Thursday night with a new proposal They're in fear of losing 182 parking spaces. You've been very clear already on that. Can you update us now on why, what this new proposal will be that the residents will see on Thursday? Will it preserve any more parking spaces, or are they still going to lose the 182 there?
Yeah, right now we're only in the concept design phase of that, so we actually have not presented a formal proposal. But we have been studying, looking at what the effects and the impact would be if we were to put a bike lane on that particular stretch of roadway. And so we will have continued ongoing conversations, but we have not actually submitted a formal proposal as of yet.
So what are you planning on doing? They're under the impression that they're getting a proposal Thursday night from DDOT.
I'll have to follow up with you on that after that. I'm not for sure. I believe it's going to be more of just a conceptual design that we'll be sharing.
Would you share that with us prior to Thursday so we could get a look at it before?
I'll talk to the team and see if we can.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
What about the members of the community?
Community questions.
Step up front. I know the DDOT team may need to take off. Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate and thank you for coming out and addressing the concerns. There are a couple of things that I personally have that are concerning me, like this island here. I understand the reasoning for it, but I don't think it's going to have, and it has not had the impact that DDOT is looking for. It has not slowed down the traffic. The traffic is actually slowed today because of the activity that's going on. There probably would have been a better way, like a speed hump, because what happens is people start at that end of Minnesota Avenue.
Okay.
And between that and the stoplight, there's actually nothing, because this doesn't slow them down. And then there's another question that I have about the people who are on the ATVs and the unlicensed two-wheelers that come through here on a regular basis. If the sun is out, they are out, and they're out in droves. And then the third question, I have a lot. The third question is, this is a great space for the community, and when they're having activities, the people who are attending the activities take away the spaces for the people who actually live here. And I noticed that in other spots of the city, that if there's an active center, there is a designation for the people who live in the area, so that the people who are parking on the street and taking those places have a much more difficult time. And I noticed that there's like here, instead of them using the Metro parking lot, which is free on Saturdays, they actually take away the street. So there may be some way that they can, instead of doing on-street parking, that they park over there.
Okay.
And then so today, and I love the fact that you're here, but today, because you're here, the street cleaners are here. And I say that because I'm the one who cleans my block on my side.
Thank you.
And we don't get any regularity, consistency. We don't have a notice.
Do you have street cleaning on your block?
I live on Minnesota Avenue. We don't know when they come. They show up when something is going on here at this block.
Right.
I live in that block right there.
All right. So in my approach to the center, I noticed unacceptable level of litter myself in the blocks around, and so the deputy mayor and I have talked about that. Keep in mind that some of our operations are getting back to normal, just like everybody else who has been affected by COVID. Some of our operations have been affected as well, and some of our employees have been affected. So our focus on cleanliness hasn't wavered, and we're going to make sure that it's back at the level we want.
Okay, this was before COVID. Just
well,
FYI.
I can't go back.
I'm just hoping that
right.
as we're moving forward.
Well, that's what I just said.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna hold you to it.
Please do, because we don't want to see our litter on our streets. Is unacceptable to us as it is to the neighbors. and it should be on a schedule. You should know what the schedule is, and we're going to make sure we're working with your mokers so that that schedule is happening on a street like this. I imagine that there is a regular schedule. So if it's not happening, we need to make sure it happens. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. So you asked, or you put a number of things on the table. I'm not sure that I remember them all. So why don't I stick around after so that we can go through some of your concerns and make sure there's a pathway to get them addressed.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm David Smith. I'm the former Deanwood president. I'm also Deanwood Community Development Organization, the Pearl Coalition, and other hats. I have two questions, Ms. Mayor. I wanted to quickly follow up on her point about other people using our facilities. My kids are all in college now, thank God, but they never use this place. Even as the president, my kids would get kicked out and mistreated. Recently, we did a gaming program. We would have had the first gaming team in D.C., formed a business. We worked with Commissioner Holmes, got the money in the budget to create a gaming lab. We were told we couldn't use the lab. So on Deanwood Day, we were told we couldn't do Deanwood Day. But then the next day, MPD is here with Parks and Recreation doing movie night. This has been going on for 5 or 6 years. Now, my question, I just wanted to put that out so you could be aware how we're being treated as a community. My kids don't use this place. We don't use these fields. All our playgrounds have been locked since our playgrounds were burnt down. It's a problem, and everybody's scared to talk to you about it. So I'm gonna do it. So that's something separate, but she brought it up. I just had to tell you the truth. Now, my question for DDOT is, as the former president in 2012 to 17, we asked for median strips, those raised sidewalks for Sheriff Road. We didn't have accident problem. We had speeding problems. We just wanted to raise. They put those barriers in. We've had, good Lord, smashed in the houses. 3 or 4 a week. It's a ramp. And now we have all these residents who are culturally not the same as us because they're new, and these young people speed. So these median strips become launching pads, and we think the community should be engaged on how to design it, and we get no. As a former commissioner, as a former president, I think hopefully the Commissioner Green and Mr. Holmes will talk about how DDOT does not engage in the design discussion. I've been here my whole life. I ride a bike. We could help with design based on how we need it and want it. Culturally, we should be feeding design and ideas to you guys with experts helping us. But we get mistreated as if we're not educated and we don't know what we're doing over here. We know what we do. We built this community. And then my last point, that was my question for DDOT. What is going to be the process for Sheriff Road? Because we had these median strips got put in Sheriff Road in the September's budget. You know what I mean? We didn't know about it, and since then we've had destruction. We really don't want that on Sheriff Road. The narrowing creates.
Why? Because
the cars speed and the way you guys drew the parking spaces. Please go walk. They weave around it and smash into the car that's parked right there, and then get propelled into the front yard. And that's happened 100 times. 100 times. It's consistent. I grew up around here. That never happened before. We have accidents at the intersections, pedestrians getting hit because of idiots speeding. We want the traffic measures, but the design of how it's being done is somebody brought this in from some other city. This ain't going to work here on Sheriff Road, and we know that. We've been here.
Okay.
So we want to work with DDOT as a community who have engineers, engineers in our neighborhood, who have artists in our neighborhood. We want to help design something that'll work for the city's concerns around really putting bike lanes in the seams and these traffic calming measures that have to happen to keep us safe on Sheriff Road. So I hope you can talk, commissioners know everything I'm talking about.
No, I got it. And
for Sheriff Road, if you not. Commissioner Green, 7C04, I share Sheriff Road with Commissioner Holmes, and what he is describing is there is nothing else in comparison with the traffic calming measures on Sheriff Road. It's just the islands. So when people come flying down Sheriff Road, they're launching into people's homes. We've already had over 150 car crashes on Sheriff Road. 5100 block is the most dangerous block on Sheriff Road. And this is my biggest complaint about the speed and the pedestrian islands. You would think that this is what we need. Pedestrians be able to stand in the middle of the road trying to get across the street. But it means absolutely nothing if there's a flying car.
What do you think that is the solution?
Well, DDOT did announce a week or two ago that they will roll out a corridor-wide plan for Sheriff Road from 44th Street to Eastern Ave. As David just stated, he wants that to be a community-engaged process. so that it's not what we experienced before, where they just drop those islands there without us knowing. We want to be engaged in this process so that if we're going to improve the islands, let's make sure there are other traffic calming measures to match it. Like 48th Street and Sheriff Road. People have been crying out for a stoplight at that intersection. There's no other stoplight on Sheriff Road until you get to 45th. That is the only stop sign you run into on Sheriff Road at 48th Street. So the whole infrastructure of Sheriff Road does not match the level of growth of residents on Sheriff Road.
Okay, I got it.
I know. It's a lot.
What you're putting on the table is not uncommon, right? And it is also not uncommon that these studies take a while. The more ideas, sometimes the ideas make the project better, but sometimes it just slows the project down. And so that is that's precisely what we're talking about today. On the one hand, we have people that say, D-Dot, these studies, they take so long. What are you going to do about it? And on the other hand, we have the community that say, D-Dot, we want to design the project. You see the conflict of interest there. So this is part of my job. This is why you all hired me. Hold on, let me just I'll get there. But let me just finish this statement. That we'll do our best to help accommodate both pools of thought. Okay, on the one hand, you're going too slow, D-Dot. On the other hand, we need more community input. Not all projects and interventions are the same. And so where we can have a community-focused project, we will. But this is my point today. There are instances where we can't and we won't because we know the interventions will work and we need the interventions sooner rather than later. And so the professional engineers, and this is not to the earlier point to say that there aren't great, smart people in all neighborhoods. That may be true, but they don't all work for DDOT. And it's DDOT's job to make those proposals and get them implemented to make our roads safer.
And hopefully I can add something else to your
Sure.
list involving
The
Maryland,
schools?
the state of
Okay,
Maryland. Deanwood has experienced a lot of police chases from neighboring police departments.
Yeah.
Prince George's County, Seat Pleasant,
Yeah.
Capitol Heights, even as recently as Mount Rainier. We don't experience this with MPD. So we're trying to get a better understanding how they're allowed to do endless police chases along Sheriff Road where cars are launching into people's homes. And it's
Okay.
always a struggle trying to get information after the police chase. What happened? What caused it? Why did you chase this person from all the way, some town, all the way out there, down into our neighborhood, and it's causing major destruction?
That's fair. So let me make sure we understand their protocols may be different from ours. I don't think they're entirely different from our protocols involving, a person who's been involved in a serious crime. But let me make that plain. That's a fair assessment.
Thank you.
Okay, last question.
Oh, thank you. How you doing?
See,
Antoine?
you know what this suggests to me, Commissioner?
Yes.
The people want their in-person meetings again. That's what the people want.
I hear both sides.
The
people
people
want
want
people
their
like some
in-person
people like
meetings.
hybrid. I see them eat their plate of dinner while we're having our meeting, and some people want to be in person.
They want,
yeah,
they want to see their officials.
I've seen a lot of people eating on my meetings, so I know
right.
they like it being at home too.
I know.
So
I know that's what I'm just saying.
I got you. So thanks for coming out here this morning.
No, it's my pleasure.
And I appreciate what one of the constituents definitely talked about, what we've experienced here in Deanwood in terms of the amount of paperwork that DDOT is requesting residents to do street cleaning is one of the issues that has hampered a lot of the signs being added, especially in the Deanwood area. One year we need 3 blocks, another year we need 1 block, we need 75% of a block. You keep moving the goalposts. We can't get it done. That's why we don't have it here. It's not regular. When we do reach out to them, they'll be like, if it's a free Friday on the schedule, that's when they may show up. And it's not consistent.
Well, let's fix that. We'll fix
absolutely.
that. Okay.
Absolutely. Going back to what former President David Smith said, yes, we've had a lot of issues with the field. The permitting that's been happening around here, there's been a lot of folks that's been coming out here, and the trash that's still seen around here is from events from folks that are from organizations that are not of here using our fields. We really need to start pushing back on that, and to the extent where that
when you say
intersects
they're
with,
not of here, what do you mean? Do you mean they're not from Deanwood, or they're
and not from Maryland, not from DC. These are not DC organizations that are getting field permits that are destroying the neighborhoods on the weekend. And the intersect between that and DDOT is bad. We had to work with DDOT for years to tell people you can't park over there. So that barrier there, as good as it is, it never stopped people from parking on all of the no parking on Sunday, because they know in DC you can park on Sunday and not get it. You can park illegally on Sunday and not get a ticket. It's been happening for over a decade. So I'll send pictures later. So we definitely need to see some strong.
Why can't they park there? Do we know why is no parking there?
No parking on. They park on the street side of the no parking sign.
I'm just trying to figure out why there's no parking there. Probably because the bus need more buses. The buses need more space.
Before it was there.
Okay.
The thing is that WMATA doesn't want anybody parking on the outside of the other side. I'm not sure DDOT puts the signs there, but no one respects them, and that's the problem.
Okay.
And again, once that starts narrowing down the street, that right there, it's very hard to get around, and then I'll start seeing people go the other way. That's how bad it gets. People will park all the way up to the bus loop, and basically clog up traffic.
Okay, so you all really don't like those flexi post medians right here.
No, we just want.
That's what I'm hearing.
If we enforce them on Sunday to say no parking, they won't park there. Or if we're working with WMATA and say, hey, you can park over there Saturday and Sunday for the event, it takes a ton of cars off the street that are blocking residents.
I'm just looking at that side of the street. Now, obviously, the buses have to get through, but I'm not sure why there's no parking right there. That's the first question I'm going to dig into. Okay. And that will help us with our road narrowing if people park there regularly.
I mean, so long as the parking lot is there, we know that there's supposed to be development over there, but we haven't heard anything about it. And
eventually, I'm sure there will be.
Yeah. So we want to work on that too. And then again, I believe you also talked about Sheriff Road, and I think again, we did receive information from DDOT about that project. Unfortunately, what was said that was going to happen on that project didn't occur. DDOT in the past was coming out to community meetings to give us presentation like the 49th Street project that got taken care of, and the signs would come up, tell you how much we're spending, how much the federal is spending for that. So we did get updates, but when he was talking about pervious, it was supposed to be basically green infrastructure. It was a real quick job that was done by whoever did the work, so much so that when we had that snowstorm right afterwards, equipment was being torn up. Whatever that was. All right. So we definitely want to work with DDOT.
So can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Has your commission ranked its DDOT or traffic safety projects? Like if I asked you how many SMDs
you have 21 outstanding.
How many SMDs do you have?
Single member districts, we have 7.
You have 7.
Yes.
And each commissioner has a ranking of the types of projects that are a priority?
Yes. Well, how we do it is basically per the DDOT process. The TSA is done by the resident.
So yours have 21 outstanding.
We have at least 21 outstanding right now, which is the email we sent to DDOT over the last couple of years.
Well, that's very helpful.
Yeah,
that's very helpful because
Absolutely.
that tells us, and what I'm be curious about is how that matches up with DDOT's work plan for your commission area.
Absolutely.
And all of those things are super helpful. I'm going to end because I see Jim Slattery here with an example.
Thank you.
I want to give everybody an example of, because sometimes it's hard to picture these projects. And I was involved in a DDOT project for many years. And I dare say it started when I was an ANC commissioner. It's at 4th and Cedar in Tacoma, near the Tacoma Metro. And people are familiar with the Tacoma Station Tavern. That block is what I'm talking about. And it radically changed that block. It's a short block, very short block. There is a park, a little triangle park across the street. For all of my life, it was two-way traffic. It was buses that went along. It connected to the metro station, the actual metro station. So a lot of people walk to the metro station from the neighborhood, from both sides, the D.C. side, the Maryland side. Children walk to Coolidge High School. Beautiful Sam Gilliam mural on the underpass. All of these things happening. And so this project developed for many years because neighbors and everybody saw all the traffic complex accidents and pedestrian, including pedestrian incidents. So a lot of things going on. And so over the years, there was a lot of back and forth on the design. There was, and it took so long to be accomplished that when I went to an event like this to talk about the project getting started, there were a couple people there who said, "Why are you doing this? Why are you making this one way?" And I realized that this project had been around for so long, they didn't know about the years of community engagement. So I was recently driving through that area, and it now has a streetery because of COVID. It has a bike lane that helps connect the Metropolitan Branch Trail critical link. They push the parking out, so it is parking next to the bike lane. Is now going one way. The traffic along Blair is moving slower, but it is moving. And I thought to myself, this is a prime example of how we can use the public space differently. It took some years to design. It took some people like me who traveled that way my entire life to think about it differently. It has a bike lane, it has parking, it now has a streetery, and it is safer for people to do all of those things, to go to the businesses, to go to the metro, to visit the park, all of those things. And it represents some trade-offs. But I thought this is a great example of how we can get a bike lane, how we can get a safer intersection, how we can get a streetery, how we can slow down traffic. And so I realized then that too many people, we're so used to seeing things the same way that we can't envision how we can have more shared space on our road. And then after it's done, it's like it was always there. And so that is how I hope that the community will go into these discussions that inevitably will involve some trade-offs and some thinking differently about how we use our public space. And I think Fourth Cedar and Blair is a great example for people to think about. Thank you, everybody.